Welcome to Connect to Market. I'm Casey Cheshire. Join us as we learn from marketing leaders who are driving founder-led growth. We're sponsored by Ringmaster, building B2B podcasts and communities to reconnect you with your audience. I'm so excited. Thank you all for joining this podcast. It's all about connecting to the market. It's all about connecting to our buyers. So glad you're here. And you know what? We are a podcast. We are a community and maybe even a family. We're all here. We're all senior level marketers trying to help each other out in that SaaS game. And so my first guest today, I'm very excited to introduce you to him today. He is a fellow community member, B2B marketing leader, a thought leader, a content pro, podcast host, an adventurer, you name it. He's got a lot of experience in the healthcare SaaS space. If you're also in that space, he loves the strategy side, pick his brain on it. On the side, a hiker, a runner, and he definitely has strong opinions about coffee. Let's go. Host of the RCM Ladder Podcast, VP of Marketing at AccessOne, James Furbush. Welcome to the show, sir.
Casey, thank you so much for having me. And man, it occurs to me I need to up my intro games for my podcast. That was really well done. Mine are not nearly as good, and that's probably where I've gone wrong in my podcasting ways. But thanks for that.
Well, you know what? You just have there's a lot to say about you. So maybe I just have a high quality guest here. So maybe that's just what we got.
You should send that to my mom because, maybe my parents will finally be proud of me after all these years.
Right. Or maybe you just save the recording as like your wake up, your alarm wake up, just a little introduction. But I digress. Let us get into the heart of this thing. Let us crack this thing open. I want to ask you our first question.
Yeah.
And for those listening, this is going to be something we're going to ask everyone. This is that penultimate question. James, the spotlight is on you, sir. What is the most important strategy for marketing leaders who want to connect to their market?
Yeah. So Casey, I've given this a lot of thought, and where I've landed, the plan on this for me is, I think actually more important than having a strategy for sort of connecting in the market. For me, it comes down to I've got sort of 3 principles that I try to stick to. Because I think the thing with a strategy is it's always going to sort of change and evolve. But the idea of building relationships at scale, the idea of connecting with your market, in order to do that effectively, you have to have some principles and guardrails in place. And so I think those are actually a better place to start than various strategies. So
cool. Like core principles, like
core principles.
Yeah, I love that, man.
As you sort of do any sort of tactic or strategy or thing. So we'll get into it.
By the way, I am a sucker for a good numbered list, so let's do this.
I'm a sucker for a good numbered list, and I was kind of if I do 1 or 2, I got to go 3. So I had to dig deep for 3 just to feel like it's a magic number.
All right, we won't judge 3 too much.
So don't judge me too harshly. So the first one should come as no surprise to anyone who works in B2B marketing, but I think it's an important one to point out, which is you have to know your audience intimately. And the reason I say this is because I don't know about you or the other people listening. For me, as a marketer, I get marketed to quite a bit.
Yeah. Same.
And so I always sort of reverse engineer. The way my brain works is whenever I get either good marketing or bad marketing, it's my brain automatically starts to reverse engineer what those companies do. And it still amazes me actually to this day how much bad marketing I get where we've all gotten the email that's hey, I see you work in healthcare. I see you are a VP of marketing in healthcare. And it's sort of cool. You did the bare minimum of trying to know me. So
So like I read your LinkedIn headline and that's what I know about you.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I see you went to Syracuse. And it's like, okay, well, why does this matter to me? Like, I'm not going to respond to you like just because you figured out like where I went to college. And so I do think like knowing your audience intimately, and that is like where they show up, how they want information, what matters to them. I think something that often gets lost in B2B marketing is we're all trying to sell a product and we all think that that product matters. But so much of your buyer's life is not like your product,
Right.
and it's like, and so I think,
Wait, you're saying they don't just like wake up in the morning and go like, oh yeah, I can't wait to get on that SaaS app.
yeah, it's like, I mean, I love Monday.com, but it's like, project management is not the thing I like think about, morning, noon, and night.
Right.
And so I think like, and I think that it's a good perspective to have, which is like, your product is probably 1/5 of their total brain space, no matter what you are trying to sell.
Yeah.
And so understanding like what their full day-to-day looks like, what their full week looks like, what their actual business objectives and stuff are. I think about this a lot. We had a thing where a sales guy came back to me and he was like, oh man, I was like trying to reach this prospect and he had a good relationship with them. And, she remarked, she's like, hey, Joe, you're trying to sell me patient financing, which is one of the products that we sell. And she's like, I've been dealing with like a cyber attack for the past 10 months that impacts like our whole system. And you're coming here asking me about patient financing, and I could care less about patient financing in this moment in time. I think it's just like a good reminder that it's like your buyer, your audience, whoever you're selling to, whoever you're marketing to, there's so much more going on in their professional life outside of the thing that you are trying to market and sell to them. And so having sort of that deep understanding of your audience, knowing them intimately, is sort of the first thing that you got to do if you're going to sort of connect to market, build relationships at scale. It's like principle number one for me. So that's number one.
Dude. Well, hold on. Let's dig into this one because like that's so powerful. There's a couple things I want to ask you about because you shared a couple. You know what? You had an ordered list within an ordered list, sir.
Okay. Interesting. Lay it on me.
Yeah. So I love this. The word that strikes me because you don't hear it often a lot, especially in B2B, is the word intimate, right? What does it mean to you to be intimately connected and not just like, or intimately know your audience, not just know them? Like, what is? I mean, that's a powerful word, right? That's like love. That's
yeah, and I don't mean it like in a creepy way.
Or do you?
Or maybe I do. I don't know. Like, but I do think, right? It's like understanding the things they care about, understanding the motivations, the reasons why they would eventually decide to buy your product.
Yeah.
I think there's just a lot of that sort of psychology that goes into why someone would finally make a move to engage with you guys in a sales process. And it could be any number of reasons, but I think also it's like knowing how to be helpful in some ways, how to not be annoying to them. And so for me, I think just that knowing them intimately, it's like, there's that old adage, and I did not make this up, so I won't take any credit for it, but it's kind of like, it's like, why does someone decide to buy a hammer? And it's like, well, they want to buy a hammer because they want to hang pictures up in their new house. And the reason they want to hang pictures up in the new house is because they want to feel sort of safe and loved in their new environment. It's not that they actually want to buy a hammer, right? So it's sort of like that sort of downstream thing of like why they decide to do something. And ultimately, I think what you're trying to get to is not like, hey, we're going to sell you a hammer and this is the best hammer because it weighs 20 ounces and it's made of titanium. That's all well and good. But the real reason someone wants to buy a hammer, perhaps fictitiously, is like they want to feel safe and loved. And so you have to get to that sort of like, how does my product or my thing make this person in their professional life feel like it's going to be the thing that empowers them to get a promotion and get more money so that they can like take their family on a trip to Disney World, right? For instance. And so you can't get to that point if you don't, like, if you're not steeped in their sort of day to day, if you don't know them intimately, you won't ever get to that place where you can go beyond like, I have a hammer to sell you that is, you know, very effective. Right. And I think a lot of marketers kind of they're perfectly fine to be like, this is the best titanium hammer in the world.
Right.
And they never get to that next level of like safety, comfort, that sort of emotional resonance of how your product can make their life better or help them achieve their goals or do that thing. So that's kind of what I mean.
I like that. You know, for me, it like we're shopping some financial software and some vendors and whatnot, and one of the things that stands out to me is like the pain and nervousness of wanting to make strategic decisions. Do you get a bigger office? Can you afford the bigger spend? Can you, you know, like you want to all do all these things. And so to me, a vendor that was like, hey, we'll do all these things and, you know, your reports will look great on this app and fine. But if somebody said, hey, you need to be able to make decisions with your, you know, data. And like, I bet you're worried about whether you should make choice A or B. And I'd be like, yeah, I am. Like, I feel like that's getting to that emotion of that, the human on the other end is saying like, oh man, I'm struggling with this. You know, help put me at ease. And I mean, you can't compete with that kind of marketing, right? If you speak to the emotion.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. It's like you ran off a bunch of these questions, like where to show up, you know, how they get information, what matters to them. How do you start figuring these things out? Like, let's say you started a new company.
Yeah.
I mean, it seemed like really deep questions. Do you get like a bottle of Jack and kidnap a prospect and take him to Grand Canyon?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's, I don't have a like well-defined process for it. But I think it's sort of an ongoing thing. And I think, look, I think it starts with, you have to actually talk to these people.
Right.
You have to actually just talk to them and ask them 9 million questions that they, probably don't want to hear. But I think, right, because it's like every time you talk to someone, you learn something new, you file that down away, and then you ask someone the next time, you kind of bring that up, and you, right, it's sort of that never ending process of talking to customers.
And you need the reps, right? Like you can't just do one and then call
No,
it.
you need like multiples, right? And it doesn't, you don't have to, it's not like 30, 40, 50, it can be 12, but you got to start somewhere. So that's like starting, you know, and I think actually talking to them, I mean, like listening to gong calls are fine. Right. I know people will say that, in the absence of actually being able to get on the phone with your prospect and talk to them, things like gong calls, if available. Look, like ChatGPT is a good place to start building a profile and building that together. And so I think that there are a lot of different inputs, right? There are things, are they on subreddits? Are there places where they are hanging out, you know, and things like that, going to trade shows. But I do think at the end of the day, like nothing replaces just the actual like sitting down and talking to a customer or a prospect. Like one-to-one, like having that FaceTime, and starting there and just, you know, letting it snowball and the momentum build.
I know you're also a podcaster. Have you done anything with that where like you interview maybe your happy buyers or future buyers or anything like that?
Yeah, but we definitely use it. We use the podcast for, certainly like, hey, how do we get a beachhead into new accounts that won't engage with us? And that's certainly worked. But it's also, yeah, for customers, like, hey, happy customers, like we've got this podcast, like come on. And um, so it's definitely something that we use for both. And the way that we've sort of structured the show and sort of built the hook around the show, it's it's we sort of pitch it as like a career development. So come on to talk about career, like your career, the career development, like what are the lessons that you've learned as you've moved up the, professional ladder, so to speak, and, share those lessons with the younger generation. Right. And so we sort
Right.
of frame it around that sort of context. And so in that regard, it works for prospects, it works for customers, it works for a wide range of use cases that we can sort of build into it for sure.
Yeah, I like that. What was powerful is you're making it about them and their career. You're not making it like it's the me show that you get to be a part of. It's the you show, you know?
Well, that's exactly it, right? And I think like this is, look, frankly, I think this sort of also comes down to like knowing your audience, which is like, I think at the end of the day, like people, you know, people don't, frankly, they don't care about your company. And, um, and so I think at the end of the day, like people want to become better at their job. But the way that they can do that is like learning from other people who are doing their job. And so like they don't necessarily want to like hear from me. And so I don't want to make it about the whole point of a podcast is not to make it about your company. It is to make it about your guest, right? Like it's to make it about the person who is coming on to share their professional knowledge. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it would be a complete fail if I were making it about me and not about them. So yeah.
Powerful. Dude, I didn't know I took you on a sidetrack. That was all number one. What's number two?
So number two is sort of like the very related, which is like, don't be hostile.
Mm.
And I guess sort of the flip side of that is also like, the reason I say like don't be hostile, I think is just because I think that there's something to be said about being an easy company to do business with or an easy company to potentially buy from. I think like, look, you've all been in a situation where you go to a website to read an article and you're like, what are these 9 million pop-ups that I have to close? These ads, like it's a shitty reading experience. And I do think like, as far as marketers go, it's like you can send like 7 emails a month, but I think at the end of the day, like you run the risk of becoming the company where you're like, Jesus Christ, another email from this company. Like we've all gotten like, as much as I do shop from time to time at J. Crew, it's like I don't need 7 emails. Like they send 4 emails a day to my inbox, and at some point
Man.
you're like, you're being hostile to me. Like another email is not gonna make me buy like anymore. And I think like in B2B, it's the same thing, right? It's like they fill out a form. Do you respond to the form? Like how quickly can they actually set up a meeting with sales? They just want to look at your product. Can you just put it in a YouTube video for them to watch? Like I think that like for us and for a lot of sales-led organizations, so much of marketing is meant to protect the interaction with sales, because sales wants to dictate the rules of engagement.
Totally.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But at the end of the day, it also, that contradicts like the notion of like all of those stats that are like, by the time a prospect engages with your company, they've already made up their mind, like who the company they want to do business with. They've already gone through like 80% of the research process and buying process. We're seeing it now a lot where people come to our website, fill out the form to like speak to sales or see a demo. And we're like, how did you hear about AccessOne? And they're like, ChatGPT. And if you reverse engineer it, a lot of these prospects are now just going to ChatGPT and being like, I work in this type of hospital and health system. I need a patient financing block. Like they're doing that work and kind of narrowing down their list and doing a lot of that research and things like that. So to me, like creating an environment where you give away value, you give away information with like no expectation in return for like anything, where you are just as helpful and super helpful as you can be. And don't be like actively hostile. Like don't stand in the way, like don't be annoying. Don't stand in the way of someone who may want to buy your product or talk to sales or just look at a demo or get some information. To me, I think that is super important. And again, like it comes down to like, how do you build relationships? Well, how you build relationships in the real world is like, you're kind to people, you give away value, you show up when they need you, you do all of these things without any sort of expectation in return that it's going to lead to like a financial value. And I know that, look, I'm not under any lies that like, I know everyone has quarterly goals and we're all sort of part of the capitalist system. And so like, I'm not blind to that. And I'm not like, that is my world as well. So sometimes you do have to like push a little bit, but I do think like being that, I do think you can sort of damage your brand and turn people off when you're like, should we send this other email? Like we just sent one like 3 days ago, like let's send another one.
So don't be like J. Crew. Don't have no chill. Like
there's a fine balance, and you do have to sort of like find that balance. And a lot of that depends on, look, every company has different sales cycle lengths, different buying motions, different, right? All of that. So how you decide to operate kind of within those parameters to hit your goals, but at the same time, like try to have a little bit of empathy for your buyer, knowing that like you're not the most important thing in their world.
Do you have a magic number? How do you find that balance?
I have no idea. Trial and error, I suppose, right?
Yeah. It sounds like you just vibe that empathy and then.
Yeah, I mean, I think I like vibe that. I think like, look, I think I sort of operate under the like, would I want to read this email? Would I want to do this thing? Would I want to go to this event? And I try to like operate backwards from like, would I be annoyed if someone did this to me? Like, would I be like annoyed by it?
Yeah.
And if the answer is yes, like in your personal life, if you're like, man, if I did this, then I would be personally annoyed if a company did this to me. Like that's a good indication that like you shouldn't do it as a marketer to your prospects. Like full stop.
Right. Don't do it. Don't be hostile. Damn. All right. So we've got the intimate knowledge of our buyers, really understanding them. We've got, don't be like J. Crew. Don't be hostile. What's number 3?
So number 3, I think is, this is a little bit of a misnomer. So people will probably come at me. But I think like doing what doesn't scale, or trying to do what doesn't scale. And I say it's a little bit of a misnomer because I think at this point, it's really easy to scale just about anything in marketing. Personalized ads that are just for certain accounts. Like you can actually scale that fairly easily. Sending gifts and packages, like you can actually kind of scale that fairly easy. There's like a million tools. But I think like trying to start from that of like, if we do this thing, is it gonna scale effectively? And I think like thinking about like how you build how you build relationships in your personal life, where you're like, hey, I'm sending a thoughtful note because I was thinking of this person and this thing made me think of them. I'm sending a gift because they did something nice and I want to say thank you. There's a lot of that yes, you can do it at scale. I'm not saying that, but thinking about like, what are those things that are harder to scale, are oftentimes the things that end up building the best kind of relationships, having intimate, like small dinners, having, doing things like that. So I think like just thinking about it of like, okay, what is the thing that's going to be hard to scale, or we'll have to figure out how to scale it, and starting from there. To me, I think about that of like, it's super easy now to send a million seemingly fake personalized emails. That is easily scalable and very easy to do. So is that the thing you should be doing? I mean, maybe, but if you have the budget for doing hey, we're going to do a 10-person dinner in a certain area, invite 10 like we sell to enterprise. So like our deal cycles are very long.
Right.
But I think like doing things that are harder to do and maybe have more impact might be the thing that is a better use of time and resources than doing the thing that is like super easy and everybody can do.
Right. Because most people aren't doing those things. I love the idea of challenging us to go in those challenging places and try the things that don't necessarily auto scale. See if it works first, and then you can worry about that later. But it's also more personal in a way as well. I wanted to transition. This is powerful, man. You have been in the connected market community for a while now. Seen in the different meetings, conversations. Are you going today?
I'm gonna try to. Yeah. Fingers crossed.
Okay, cool. People listening are like, "What day is it today?" Don't worry about it. They're once a month.
I mean, the meeting that I had before that I was worried about just got moved, and so now I'm like,
Okay.
I've got that. It's like the block is free, so if I can get a few things done, free up my time, I will be there.
Cool. So I wanted to ask, like maybe just describe for people, what is it? Well, I guess what's the real? You've been
Yeah.
to it. How did it go? And what was your experience like just joining the community?
Yeah, I mean, so I would say super useful for me. And I think what's so useful about it is getting sort of building up that sort of personal connection with other marketers has been super valuable. Because I think, again, this is sort of what's interesting, and I'll tie it back to what I was just talking about, which is in some ways, it's actually very easy, but you can scale up sort of community. For me personally, I'm probably part of like 15 Slack communities, and they're very easy to build out and get started. But the problem is, it's very hard in that environment to like build an actual personal relationship. So community, very easy to scale, very hard to do the thing that doesn't scale. And what I love about what you're building, the connect to market, is that you're doing the thing that actually is very hard to scale, which is like you're getting people on a Zoom and you're getting like building small pockets within the Zoom so that when you show up, you're like actually getting good FaceTime and having great interactions with like other marketers. And you feel like you're actually building relationships. So then it's kind of like, cool, like we just had this great conversation. I'm going to go connect with you on LinkedIn. Like, let's stay in touch. And so now you're building a network, that's probably slower to scale, but more valuable for me, which is now I have resources I can tap into when I'm trying to solve specific problems. Because for me, the value is any problem you've had in marketing, someone out there has probably figured out a solution to that problem. And so the real unlock for something like what the Connect to Market kind of community is doing is now you're accessing people who have probably maybe solved a problem, and you can ask, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. Have you dealt with that? No, I haven't. But hey, I met this person over here in a meeting 2 months ago, and they've solved it. I'll send a connection. I'll connect you. You talk to them, and now you've got your problem solved. And so it does help to sort of shorten the putt, so to speak, of now your challenges that you're faced with, you can fix in, I don't know, say 2 weeks instead of 2 months. So to me, like, just that relationship building that takes place has been hugely valuable for me.
Love that. And related to that, do you have any challenges you're currently tackling that you want to put out to the community and get any experience shares from, not how to do it, right? We're not going to tell you what you should do, but just like, hey, I went through this, here's what I experienced. And also, is there any kind of experience you want to put out there that you're good at that you want to put out there to the community?
Yeah, I mean, so I think for me, the thing that's starting to keep me awake at night is it's sort of like the classic mid-funnel problem, which is like, once we get people to know who we are and maybe they're interested in what we do and maybe there's a good value, how do I shrink that mid funnel? Because our deal cycles are, like I said, like 18 months, and we're really good at the top of the funnel, like bringing new people in. We're really good at the bottom of the funnel, like closing deals and stuff. But it is that like 12 months in between, the 15 months in between when those things happen, that it's like, how do I engage and how do I get them to take action and how do I prompt them to move along? And so, for me, that is the thing where I'm like, okay, that's like the next big challenge that I need to solve and have a playbook for, which I don't have a good one now. So I'd say for me, that's kind of the big thing that I'm starting to try to wrap my head around.
Got it. Nice. And anything you want to put out there that you have a pretty good playbook out yourself if anyone's interested in the community?
Yeah, I think for me, my strengths as a marketer, it's interesting because I've sort of worn a lot of hats, but I think it is sort of that sort of brand storytelling, which is like, how do you sort of tell that same thing over and over again across product marketing, your website, sales, emails? Like, how do you have that sort of consistent, elevator pitch, that sort of consistent, concise story that just flows through everything? For me, I think that's the thing that I've gotten really strong at, and probably the thing that I'm really good at.
Awesome. Great. So people can reach out about that.
Yeah.
My next question really is, I mean, we've had a chance to chat, we've been on some calls together and some community events together, but like, really, who are you? Who are you? How do you know all these things? Can you take me back in time to like little James days? Did you know you're going to be a marketing leader and a thought leader and all these things?
No, no, not at all. For me, my dream was always to be a magazine writer in New York City.
Wow.
And if you had asked me, when I was in high school or even in college, right, that was sort of the vision that I had for my life, was sort of like, being the, that erudite sort of kind of writer in New York City. That's not sort of how my life worked out, but yeah, I think for me, I've always sort of loved storytelling. I think for me as a person, at the end of the day, like, I've always been really good at like taking complex things and understanding how things work and like getting other people excited about those things and how they work. And it just so happens that a lot of that translated into marketing. And so for
Right.
me, it's like, here I am, a lot of the skills that I started my career building to be a journalist. And this was going back to like the early days of like, 2008, like BuzzFeed and sort of those
Yeah,
early
right.
kind of websites, right? Like that's sort of where I professionally grew up in, which is like writing for websites, building websites, figuring out how to build audiences and create content that people would find interesting and read and want to share.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, you've been a sports writer, a tech writer, you name
uh,
it, news writer.
yeah, news writer. I've written for, radio, a lot of different formats. And it's funny. I look back and a lot of those skills, especially like building websites and setting up Google Analytics and all these things, SEO and whatever. I'd never in a million years did I think that any of those skills would actually be valuable to marketing, but it turns out that they are, and it's exactly a lot of what you were trying to do in 2008. It's like companies are still trying to do in 2025 in some ways. A lot of has changed over the years, but in some ways they haven't, right? And so yeah, for me, I think it's funny um, that those skills, I feel fortunate that a lot of those skills that I started to develop have translated into frankly marketable and useful skills for companies. And it just so happens that I sort of found a niche within sort of the US healthcare industry, and
Mhm.
have been just, slowly learning and sort of building up kind of my own skills over the last like 12, 13 years.
Tell me about the niche thing. Did that happen on accident? And do you recommend it? Because you've got a serious background in health that you built up over the years now.
I mean, I think for me it was kind of accidental, right? Like
Yeah.
I just I ended up my first marketing job was at a company called Athena Health. And they're just this massive health IT vendor. I mean, the easiest analogy I can make is they're kind of like the Salesforce for like healthcare IT in some ways. And that's sort of where I cut my teeth. I think for me, yeah, I would recommend it. Look, in your career, it's here's the thing about like being an industry, sort of like niching down in a specific industry, which is if you work in healthcare and you sort of lean into that, it's a little bit easier to just still have to get opportunities for your career in healthcare. It's like, and I'm sure people who work in like cybersecurity or like life sciences or whatever it is, manufacturing, there's probably 10 million different industry verticals that you might want to like niche down in. Um, but if you become a sort of expert and a well thought of person within that community and within that industry, it does make having new opportunities available to you in your career. Like I think new windows open, where if you're just bouncing around from like, I'm now in this industry or now I'm in SaaS or I'm doing this, might make it harder to find opportunities. The other thing I would say too is that like in healthcare, it's like oftentimes companies want to hire with healthcare experience because healthcare is so complicated. So if you have that experience and you don't have to ramp up because you understand the weird nuances of like of how reimbursements work and how people get paid and all these things, it frankly, it's taken me. I still don't understand. I've been in healthcare for 13 years and I still don't like fully, like, even when I think I've sort of fully understood,
Right.
something happens and you're like, I know nothing. And so, but I know enough where if I move to another company within healthcare, that sort of like learning curve is a lot less for me at this point. And so
Right.
it has been beneficial for me just in my career, to sort of niche down and be like, yes, I'm a healthcare marketing executive. I'm a healthcare marketing operator. And that just makes it a little bit easier to find new opportunities when you want them.
Yeah. I mean, good for marketing yourself and for your career, but then also, maybe instead of starting at a crawl, walk, run, you started a walk.
Yeah,
Maybe, or
exactly.
maybe one of those like the old lady power walks,
Yes.
and you're almost ready to sprint.
Yes, totally. 100%.
So, bit of a hypothetical question for you next.
You ready? I love it. These are my favorite questions because there's no right or wrong answer.
Okay. So I know you're just south of the border from me, kind of close by, which is cool.
Yes, I am a math fool for the people at home. Look,
You are a math hole. I'm glad you said it, not me first.
I make no bones about it. I'm a proud math hole.
But you're so nice. Maybe that's because you're just right now you are, but you get off the pond.
I hide it well, but if you see me on the road, you better not be driving 60 miles an hour in the passing lane.
Passing lane, aka the driving lane. I mean, that's
the driving lane. Yeah.
Okay, so I may or may not have a time machine up here in New Hampshire. So you come visit, we get some beers, we hang out, we get some good breweries, and you use the time machine, but it's a special kind of time machine. And you go back in time to 4 days after you graduated with that early degree, that Syracuse, right? American Studies, right? Just kind of bright-eyed, bushy-tailed.
Yep.
What kind of advice would you give yourself then?
I actually think I would want my younger self to give present me advice if I had the time machine and went back. And so I'm going to flip it around a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
And what I would say is, I think as you become more experienced and, in your career and in your life, there's this sort of like weird thing that happens, which is your experience allows you to kind of know what might work and what might not work almost reflexively, but because of that, you almost tend to take less risks and do kind of lean into the dumb ideas and the weird ideas. And so actually, if I took a time machine, if I took a time machine, I traveled back to my college self, I actually would want my college self to remind me to kind of do the weird thing, do the dumb thing, like take the risk, and don't be afraid to take the risk. I think actually that's more valuable than anything I could kind of teach my college age self. Now I think I would want to remember, like, when you're young, you take so many risks. You have such a higher tolerance for risk taking that sometimes sort of time dulls that edge a little bit.
Yeah.
But I do think it's an important reminder, especially in marketing, because oftentimes some of those things are the things that get someone's attention. They're the risks that you take, the weird ideas are oftentimes the thing that ends up getting attention and working out well. And so I think I would just sort of remind myself, like, yo, dude, like, as you get older, you're going to have a family and a house and like, you're going to do whatever, but like, don't be afraid to like try to lean in and advocate for like the weird ideas that you get at 2 a.m. when you can't sleep. Like, write them down and like, sometimes like try to do them, try to advocate and kind of do those weird things. Cause I think for me as in my career, I sort of stopped leaning into some of those, over the years. And so that's, I think, if I had a time machine, I'd want that sort of young person who, was full of potential and has the benefit of sort of the unknowable time horizon to just kind of give me that advice and kind of remind me to sort of do that. So that's what I would say about that.
That's powerful. The follow-up, and I'm going to ask you the follow-up anyways to this, and we'll flip it around. Do you think you would listen to your younger self?
Yeah, probably not. I'd be like, you idiot. You idiot. What do you know? Yeah. It's like, what do you know, 22-year-olds on TikTok? You don't know
You
anything.
don't know
I
anything.
probably wouldn't. No, I think like that's the one of the things that I feel that I've been able to do well in my career is like always sort of have this sense of curiosity. And I think it is just how my brain works and sort of that journalist in me and like wanting to know things and understand things and, you know, and so I think for me, like I've sort of remained very curious. And yeah, like I'm not gonna start like talking Skibbity Ohio Riz anytime soon, but like I
Yeah,
do think like trying to understand like what are the things that young people are doing and so I think I would be receptive ultimately. I'd be like,
sure.
okay, like all right, I'll give you a listen. Like that's good advice. I might give them a hard time and not sincerely like give them that win that I like listened to their advice and took it, but like I probably would deep down, kind of do take that stuff to heart. I try to be open to those kind of things.
Even having a fraction of the budget associated with craziness like that to just almost like a laboratory to test out can be really helpful.
5%, 10%,
Yeah,
find some small amount of whatever, like kind of put it aside as a slush fund to be like, okay, like I've got this in my budget, so I'm gonna try X, and we have
right.
the money, and I don't necessarily need to like get tons of buy-in, or you get buy-in from, hey, I'm gonna use X% of my budget for these crazy ideas, and I don't, because I think half the time with like just getting that approval, and sometimes that can kill the best laid plans of having to create the PowerPoint deck to get the buy-in, to get the approval to, can be a killer. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sick. Dude, and this is like your third principle was about doing the hard things and things that don't necessarily scale, trying
Yes.
the weird stuff, and then worry about, the implications if you see it start to catch. So this like it's like full circle around to what you were saying earlier.
You didn't even intend that to happen, but
Yeah, yeah, of course not.
that makes me look smarter than I actually am.
No, we'll just claim it. Just claim it,
Yeah.
James. It's all good. Um, yeah, dude. Where can people connect with you? In the community, out of the community, wherever? Like, how do you want them to reach out?
I think, well, probably LinkedIn is, I think, certainly at this point, I've I had to sort of cut a lot of social media out of my life. So I think at this point, like LinkedIn is probably the only place people can find me.
I think I followed you on X and it was like 2000 and like,
Well,
cobweb, whatever
it's
it was.
so common. 2012, I think, is probably the last time I posted on Twitter, and it'll always be Twitter to me. It will never be X.
Right, right. It's always a bird.
It was always a loving community before it turned into a hateful cesspool of not rage. And that's how I would like to remember it as a fun place to be.
Start throwing down at the very end of the show. Like, here's what I really think. Tell them what you
Yeah.
really think about marketing. Okay, dude. So hit you up on LinkedIn. We'll link to all these things. They'll be in the show notes for folks to reach out. Dude, amazing. Thank you so much for coming on here. I feel like I went to school this afternoon. I got a little master class. We talked about getting intimate with our audience. Hey, but not hostile. And also just doing the hard things, trying things out. And I feel like that was the coolest time machine I've ever heard of. So I'm going to actually have to build that thing up here so we can actually go do that. But thank you. Thank you.
Force people to talk to their younger selves, good
Right.
or bad.
Right. Well, dude, this has been awesome. And for those listening, our fellow community members, if you're new to this whole thing, thank you so much for listening. Hey, if you're interested in joining the community, we've got a link on the page. You can go check that out. We'll put it in the show notes too. Otherwise, definitely connect with James. And it's been amazing. So thank you again, James.
Oh my God, Casey, thanks so much for having me. And definitely join the community. I will say, like, Connect to Market, it's a great place to hang out and meet other marketers. I think what you've built and what you are building is pretty awesome. So I would say hats off to you for that. And thank you for having me. I hope this wasn't a total waste of time for people listening. So
Hell no, it wasn't. And seriously, for those listening, if you learned something, and I freaking did, because I literally have 2 pages of notes over here, front and back,
oh my God,
then share this with one person, right? Who needs to hear this? Is there another marketing leader that needs to hear some of these things? Hey, next time you get a hostile email, just share a link to this episode and maybe you can school that marketing team up a little bit. But yeah, Dude, awesome. Thanks for having you on here, man. It's been great.
Thanks for having me, Casey. Appreciate it.
All right, everybody. This has been a crazy cool, very exciting first episode of the Connect to Market Pod. We will see you all next time. And that wraps up another episode. Thank you for joining. For show notes and other episodes, visit us at connect2market.com. Connect to Market is sponsored by Ringmaster, creating podcasts and communities that create relationships, generate revenue, and drive growth.